Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Madison Milwaukee Downtown Exchange, a program between the two largest downtowns in the state of Wisconsin to create commonality and connections and create investment in both of our two fair downtowns. Big thank you to our partners in Milwaukee Downtown and our friends at Reinhardt, our major series sponsor, and our supporting sponsors from Whitfleet. Today we have I think it's going to be a fantastic discussion on 880 cities, creating cities for all, for 8 and for 80-year-olds. We have an exciting panel discussion today with leaders from both the 8 and the 80 side. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. But before we begin in earnest, I want to say a big thank you to our major series sponsor. It's Reinhardt, who have been with us from the beginning. I think we're on year 4 now of this great partnership between Madison and Milwaukee. And McGinnivula, an associate in the Madison office of Reinhardt, is here. And a claim to fame, I hope, for McGinna is she used to be a team member at DMI. She was a policy researcher. I hope that's still on your resume, McGinna. Is it?
Of course it is. It's always going to stay a part of it.
Good,
Thank you
good.
so
Well,
much,
welcome, McGinna.
Jason. It's good to be here and it's good to be back and be involved with DMI again. So good morning, everyone. As Jason said, my name's Migana and I'm a real estate attorney with Reinhardt here in our Madison office. For those of you who are not familiar with Reinhardt, Reinhardt is a full service law firm with multiple offices, including offices in Madison and in Milwaukee. We're proud to be a sponsor of today's Madison and Milwaukee Downtown Exchange, an event that's hosted by DMI and Milwaukee Downtown. As both of our downtowns continue to evolve and to transform, Reinhardt remains committed to supporting both our clients and communities at large. We believe in fostering the collaborations and the partnerships that will help us all grow together in our changing urban landscapes. So, on behalf of everyone at Reinhardt, thank you so much for being here this morning and for your dedication to strengthening our downtowns. And with that, I will turn things over to Jason so that we can continue with the rest of the program.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much. And again, we really know your passion for downtowns, obviously, as a former policy researcher with our team. But I want to say a huge thanks to the team at Reinhardt. Both organizations are lucky enough to have board members from Reinhardt on our team, Debbie Tomczyk in Milwaukee and Joya Wodarczyk in Madison here. So we are so thankful for all that you all do for both. And I love the background of your view, by the way, McGinna, right in the heart of downtown with buildings just behind us. So I'm glad to
Yes.
see your office today. Yes, exactly. Thank you also to our friends at Whipley, who are a big presence in both of our markets. So thank you to Reinhardt and Whipley for all of you do. All right, we're going to begin with an update. What things that are happening in our two downtowns. We're going to bring in our good friend, President, CEO of Milwaukee Downtown, Matt Dorner. Good morning, Matt Dorner.
Good morning, Jason, and good morning, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for the Madison Milwaukee Exchange. Excited to be here and continue this 4-year relationship, as Jason had mentioned. And thank you for our sponsors. Again, really excited for the discussion today on 880 cities. I think it's really, really prevalent in a lot of the work that we're doing. We're coming off a great summer of family-friendly programming and looking forward to it. It's crazy that we're already thinking about Holiday Lights, which is one of our really signature programs. We're, again, bringing together people of all different generations in downtown Milwaukee. We were discussing earlier, just came off a great downtown employee appreciation week, celebrating downtown's workforce. And really, it's been a really active summer and some really huge development projects continuing to make great progress. Again, relevant to this discussion, the Milwaukee Public Museum making great progress, Northwestern Mutual's new North Tower topping out with its glass. The Edison Mass Timber Building, pile driving right now, literally as I drove past it this morning on my way into the office. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, mention the excitement around opening downtown's first dog park just 2 weeks ago, and it's been just a community project that really, really has everybody rallying, and that whole zone has really become a hot spot. So it's really great to see the way the community is coming together. But extremely happy to be here, and I'll turn it back over to Jason.
Well, no, Matt, you're not getting off that easy.
All
This
right.
is Matt's first Madison Milwaukee Downtown Exchange as the new CEO of Milwaukee Downtown. We are thrilled to have you as part of our downtown organizations here in Wisconsin. You are the right leader at the right time, and we are so excited to work together for even more years. So, Matt, congratulations on your new position. And I got to say, congratulations on the dog park, because I know that was a project that you helped lead, which is great for everyone in downtown. So congratulations, Matt. We're here if you need anything, even if it's what not to do from me. I could tell you what not to do. Made every
Well,
mistake possible.
thank you, Jason. Certainly a team effort. Amazing team here in Milwaukee downtown. So the transition's been wonderful. Full steam ahead.
Yeah, exciting. And one thing you all don't know is we sometimes travel together, both organizations. We'll both be in Washington, D.C. here in 2 to 3 weeks' time for the International Downtown Association Conference. I know you're sending a team, we're sending a team. It'll be great to be able to coordinate and collaborate even more together. So, congratulations on all the success in Milwaukee. And go Brewers.
Go Brewer. Absolutely. The buzz around the team is just infectious. It's absolutely wonderful. So looking forward to a great September and rolling right into October.
There we go. Good for economic development for sure. All right, Madison, things are going great in Madison. We are so thrilled to finally have our greater downtown economic investment strategy off and running. We started about a month ago with our partners at MIG, Van Wall and Associates, Equity by Design, and Neo Partners. This is going to be about a 16, 17-month process to really create a strategic plan for the downtown. We are excited. This is now in coordination and collaboration with our friends in the city of Madison. We're going to be working together on our strategy and our plan and the city's downtown plan, which is the land use plan, which will be happening together. We'll be sharing data, sharing information. So we are super excited. A lot of this is modeled, honestly, after the work of what Milwaukee downtown did just a year or two ago. And so very excited for this project. A couple other big things that are happening. If you haven't been downtown, which Tom and I have been, and again, we can see it from our offices, but we're so excited with the continued progress of the Wisconsin History Center at the top of State Street. Along Mifflin Street, right? Tom knows well, the Madison Children's Museum is right there. We have got the Overture, all of these things down State Street. It's going to create an incredible cultural corridor here in the heart of downtown. So that's one of the many projects that are happening, and we're excited that the Madison Lakeway project will begin later this year, starting with the road construction of the John Nolan Causeway. We are sorry to say, though, that it'll go down to one lane each direction over the next year to year and a half or so. But that doesn't mean you should forget about us in downtown. It actually means you should come more often. Because let me just give you one fact. 80% of the businesses in Madison Center today, though, to talk about 880 cities creating communities for all. We have an excellent panel discussion from both Madison and Milwaukee. First, we have Tom Linfield, who is the president and CEO of the Madison Children's Museum, right here in the heart of downtown. Amber Miller, the associate state director of AARP Wisconsin, and Michael Van Blaricum, the president and CEO of Serving Older Adults, a wonderful organization in Milwaukee. Before we get to the panel and the discussion, we're going to get a presentation from Amber Miller, the associate state director of AARP Wisconsin, really going over what 880 Cities is to give us a good baseline. Then we'll get into the discussion with our panelists. And as always, there will be time at the end, about 8:45, 8:50-ish, for questions from the audience. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A function. Either one will work. So again, questions will come at the end from our audience. Please put those in the chat or in the Q&A. All right, we're going to give the floor to Amber Miller, who is the Associate State Director for AARP Wisconsin, to go over what 880 Cities is. And we're going to talk about why these are important for downtown and why this is such an important movement across the country, but particularly here in Wisconsin. Amber, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me as a guest.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing this. And thank you for honestly all the work that AARP does for so many communities and downtown communities in particular across the state. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and get started as Jason said, Amber Miller with AARP Wisconsin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 880 Cities, and then there's a few slides I have about you're probably thinking, like, why is AARP here? And it's always my goal in the time that I've been here with AARP of really changing the perception of how people think of AARP. So we're more than, people think of memberships, insurance, and old people. We usually get those three. So hopefully the last few slides will kind of bring it back to why AARP is involved with livable communities placemaking. So, and then as Jason said too, or as sorry, there is a few slides with a couple websites too that I'm gonna reference, but I will make sure, Jason, that I also send you kind of a handout that you can send out to everybody. So let's begin. So 880 Cities, if this is your kind of first time hearing about it, it started in 2007, and this is the founder right here on the left. His name is Guillermo Penalosa, and really it was getting frustrated by the lack of progress happening in cities both locally and globally. So you're looking at it kind of through a holistic approach. And some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, it might be like, wow, it could be that easy. And I always think that I'm like, it could be this easy to really connect communities with organic ways of making our communities better. So he's an amazing person. This organization is out of Canada. So, but what's nice is AARP 880 Cities has a really strong partnership. So that's why it just organically makes sense for us to do the stuff that we're doing together. But I definitely, encourage you after this presentation to look up the website because there's additional resources that I'm going to be talking about. And then, sorry, my cat might make an appearance too. Okay. So the 880 Cities model really, it's based off the name of the organization, which is a city should be safe for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old. So that means it should be safe. It should be accessible. We should be able to walk across the street safely. We should have different, modes of transportation. We should have green space. So when you look at it through that lens, you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We should be able to have it for all ages. And it really, excuse me, is aimed at creating, inclusive, equitable, and safe cities for all people, regardless of age and abilities. And I always say, especially with AARP, we love everybody, but of course, our mission really is 50 and older. And when the houses were built back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, beautiful big houses with lots of stairs, and people cannot age in place because, going up the stairs is differently. The hallways are smaller. So when you think about that, people are doing road construction. They're not looking at through a lens of an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old. They're looking at it like, what's the quickest way we can do it? How can we get more people driving on the city streets? So that's the reason why this model to me really kind of makes sense with both of our communities. And I apologize. I normally try not to have it very wordy, but so this is the actual principle. So when we talked about inclusivity, so designing public spaces and services for accessible for all ages and abilities. So I think we can all agree that we have probably been to places where it's not accessible for people who might be in a wheelchair, or mothers with strollers, or children with bikes. Safety, we want to make sure, and I can speak for Milwaukee. I'm a resident of Milwaukee and probably other communities. Pedestrian safety is very important. We're a very car-centric community. So how are we starting to look at it through the lens of pedestrians and people who are riding bikes? So we want to make sure there's safety, excuse me, active mobility. So promoting different types of transportation. So once again, we're not just thinking about cars. We're thinking about buses and bikes and e-bikes and strollers and wheelchairs. We really have to look at it through a different lens. Quality public spaces, we love green space. Not everybody is as fortunate to walk out their door and have the green space. So how can we ensure that, that they're attractive and that they're a destination that people want to go to? Citizen participation is so important. I think, I've gotten better working at AARP. I've been here about 6 years, a little over 6 years. And, a lot of questions when you reach a certain age, it's like, when do you retire? And to me, that's like one of the rudest things you can ask somebody, because some people are like, so what? Like, I'm not valuable anymore. My feedback's not great. So to me, we value all ages. Once again, we have worked with the Girl Scouts. We have worked with 50 and older, 60 and older. We've worked with single moms, CEOs about getting involved and how do you want to see your community. So whether you're almost retired, not retired, 8 years old, all your feedback and participation to me is really, really important. So those are the kind of the five principles that makes up 880 cities. Um, Also the benefits. So the benefits of this model to me, just talking about it, there's absolutely no downside. So improve public health. So promotes physical activity through active mobility. If you have safe streets, you are going to probably walk more. If you feel safe being in your neighborhood, you are going to be outdoors more. So thinking about it through that lens. Greater safety, so it also reduces traffic accidents, improves the perception of safety. Social cohesiveness. So imagine, having the community where all different types of people are really connecting and having those deep conversations and walking through the community. I always say that's a place that I want to live. And then sustainability, so really encourage the use of sustainable transportation modes and car dependency. Now, eventually as we age, and we are all living longer, we're living longer. So thinking about, maybe I think it was back 20 years ago, people, I think the average age was like 76, and now people are living well into their 80s, 90s. And my family lives to be about 100, so I have a lot of years ahead of me. It might not be my choice not to drive, it might be my doctor's choice to drive. And what is that going to look like? Like, we have to be proactive, not reactive, of how it's going to look like when we age. So making sure, is there a grocery store that's walkable? Am I on a bus line? Do I have green space? And these are the things that I was looking at last year when I was moving, of like, if this is the neighborhood I might grow old in or age in, I want to make sure I have everything around me and feel safe. So, so this right here, I just want to kind of just real quick talk about AARP's livable community work, and then I'm going to give you just a couple slides on some success stories. So AARP Livable Communities started in partnership with the World Health Organization in 2012. And really, when you think of 880 cities and we think of AARP, age-friendly community, very similar. We just have the 8 domains of livability, but it's looking at accessible healthcare, walkability, different forms of transportation, housing. Do we have universal design? Is it age-friendly housing? Is it visitable? So we live in a beautiful house, but if somebody who has mobility issues, can they actually get into the house? So these are things that we're looking at. It is a 5-year plan. In a couple slides, I'm actually going to show you just real quick the communities in Wisconsin who are part of the AARP age-friendly community, but it really does really work well with the 880 cities. So here's one of the examples, and this is from Canada. This is from the 880 cities website. I know we have seen this in Milwaukee. I know you guys have done it in Madison, but all about placemaking and activating space that traditionally has been vacant. So a vacant lot, a vacant alley, doing murals and activating the space with music and creative seating, pops of color, and just a beautiful photo of seeing people of all ages. So that was one. So that's AARP. We also have a lot of free resources. I'll make sure Jason gets that website to you, but it's called Pop-Up Placemaking Toolkit, and it shows you free or inexpensive ways to activate space that could be done year-round. Through the 880 Cities website, too, I will say, and we know this with the cooler weather that we were talking about before this started, is usually from about October to March, it's like hibernation season here in Wisconsin. It's very cold and we stay inside. 880 Cities, along with the AARP, created this beautiful winter placemaking toolkit that you can find free on the 880 Cities website. So if right now you're thinking about, what are some creative ways that we could do things in downtown or just in your community, you can download it. It has free ideas. So we have to make sure that we are active all year, not just during the warmer months. This right here is in Florida. This is also from the 880 Cities website, and they really wanted to take steps for it to just be a happier, healthier downtown Miami. So what they did, which I love, is I always call them kind of like mini charrettes. Getting people together, getting all different types of people. So people who live there, work there, have just moved there, have lived there forever, and getting people together, connecting and talking, envisioning, prioritizing underserved communities. And with this, just within the first day, they already identified like 4 quick wins that they were able to implement right away. So that's another way of, and I know we all have probably attended some of these, and we've also attended some, and nothing goes anywhere. It's like we talk, but we never do. So that's like the next thing of like, let's talk, let's think, let's brainstorm, but then let's do. So this was a really great way. And I think almost 500 community members, I thought was like really good. Just getting people together, connecting and thinking and talking. This right here is one of our locals. So this goes with 880 Cities, but it also goes with AARP's Livable Community Work. Is if you are near the Greendale area, they have kind of a, a not looking great part of their beautiful park, and they really wanted to activate the space. So with the help of an AARP grant and just really a lot of their residents, they activated the space into a children's garden. It's really cute. It's beautiful. It's run 100% by volunteers. When we took a tour of it, maybe about 2 years ago, an official tour, there was a volunteer there, and I asked her, I was like, "Oh, how did you like get involved in this?" She goes, "Well, I really love gardening." She goes, "But I lost my son a couple years ago, and this like really saved my life." And I was really moved by that story of like, it's not just a garden. It's not just a garden for the children, but it really, brings people together with that civic engagement that we talked about before, and beautifying a space that isn't traditionally, that would have just been kind of sitting there empty. So that's kind of a local one. So if you're in Greendale, you can see that one. This right here is La Crosse. So my counterpartner, Darren Wisniewski, that's one of his livable communities. So worked with the local college. Now we're really big into intergenerational programming. I love intergenerational programming, getting people of all ages together, connecting and talking. So it's called Walk with an Eagle. And I will say, when people heard that, they're like, is it a real eagle? It's not a real eagle. It's their mascot. So, but walking and connecting, they meet once a month, and all different people's nice sized group, almost kind of like a mini family. Now this right here, when you think about it, is like no cost. This is free. I think he provides snacks and waters, but thinking about getting people together, walking and connecting, doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't even have to be a long walk, but another way that you can activate your community. This right here is, and I'm only just planting the seed because I've talked about AARP livable communities. So this right here technically is the entire list. So Milwaukee County is our newest one, officially joined in October, and some are on their second commitment. So it's a 5-year commitment. It's absolutely free. We work with all sizes, counties. We would love to be an age-friendly state, but taking the commitment to say, how can we take the essence of 880 Cities and AARP livable community and really think about our community as a whole and the future of the community, and how can we engage the community in feedback? So if we're like, we're going to make it 4 lanes, and all of a sudden we're like, well, now we're going to do a road diet because we heard from our community. So if you want more information on this, I could definitely connect with you, but you'll notice each one does an action plan. So if you were to go on the website and you just picked, let's say, Madison, which might I add, Madison was such a great action plan. It's really committing to the 3 years of being in the community and really moving the needle. So all of them have action plans, except Milwaukee County because they're new. But that's on the website if you wanted to see it. And then I did want to plant the seed because hopefully I've kind of drummed up some ideas in your mind of AARP does have an annual community challenge grant. It comes out in January, end of January. It's due in, I think it's March, April. They give you more time now, but it's a quick action grant. Just this year, they awarded almost $4 million. We had 5 or 6 awardees in the state of Wisconsin. So if you're thinking about in your downtown area or in other parts of your community, a program, it has to be quick action. We really encourage you to look at the AARP Community Challenge grants. I would say the average amount awarded is 25,000 and under, but you can contact me or Darren, my counterpartner. But if there's ideals, after looking at 880 Cities website and AARP website, I definitely encourage you to do that. And I know we're running out of time, so websites to visit. So AARP 880 Cities. I'll make sure Jason sends this to you. My contact information, and then that was my last slide. So I just thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Well, Amber, thank you very much for setting the frame as to what an 880 city is. As you can see, 880 cities, if we do this right, we build a downtown for everyone, if it's for an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old. So that's where we want to start. Our first question for our panel is a reminder we've got Amber Miller from AARP, Tom Linfield from Madison Children's Museum, and Michael Van Bellerkum from Serving Older Adults with us on the panel. Tom, first question is for you. As Amber just talked about, you build a city for 8-year-old, for 80-year-old, it's for everyone. From your perspective, what does an 880 downtown look like here in Madison?
Well, it's interesting because we talk about this at the museum all the time because we're very, people think of Children's Museum as for children, and it's children and their caretakers. So we're thinking about this all the time, and caretakers often are, can be seniors, grandparents, other caretakers, etc. I think we have pockets that are very 880 friendly in the downtown. I don't know. I certainly haven't been part of discussions about enhancing that or where do we go. So that was, one of my first things. I know your last question is actionable steps, but I suppose I should just be more informed with who's talking about this. We have wonderful events. We have nonprofits with rooftops that are accessible. We have, at the museum ourselves, a third of the people come with access, get in for free or very little cost. So we're very accessible. We are very aware of kind of physical restraints for older people. So we plan that way. But I always think that Madison is kind of these pockets. So, I think people feel so comfortable going around the Capitol, in the farmer's market or concerts on the square are a huge multi-generational draw. And then the same with the Student Union at the bottom of State Street. I don't know that we've really figured that out for State Street itself. I think there are a lot of people who are maybe uncomfortable going down State Street. There aren't really any kids activities on the way. I think we could incorporate more green space. I think about things that, well, I won't answer all 5 questions with this one question, but I'll just start there.
I got to say, Tom and I have worked together for a long time. And Tom, you've been doing this work for a long time. Your last job was obviously with the Madison Community Foundation, did a lot of placemaking work. So Tom, we're very excited. And Tom's an artist himself, right? And just a fantastic human. Michael, what do you see in downtown Milwaukee that's sort of working, particularly for the senior community that you're working with? And where are some of the challenges in downtown Milwaukee?
Absolutely. In downtown Milwaukee, I think some of the wins that we see, some of the things that are working well are those areas that, are easy to access and promote a sense of belonging and are affordable for our older adults in Milwaukee. And, we would be here all day if I started listing the places that we, succeed in doing that. I think where some of the opportunities exist in Milwaukee is really related to affordable transportation and ease of access to those who are no longer driving or maybe afraid to drive in high congestion traffic areas. So I think there's some opportunity to improve upon there, and also creating the image that helping older adults realize that they belong downtown. It's just not for the young, actively working individuals, that there's a place that they belong and can have a voice and thrive.
Michael, thank you for that last point. I know Tom and I have talked about this before. You've got to create magnets, right, to draw
Yeah.
everyone into the downtown. Not just, we do a lot of magnets for people that, maybe look just like me, right?
Yeah.
But we need to do magnets for every group, right? Every soul
Right.
in our community has to have a soulful experience in the downtown, as our own board member Angela Russell says. Amber, I want to ask you this question, and Michael sort of got onto it at the end there with opportunities. What are some of the biggest barriers, right? Physical, social, economic, that can prevent children, but of course, the area you're working on, older adults, from fully engaging in downtowns and in community spaces?
I mean, I really feel like Michael actually kind of hit it on the head is I also think okay, so one of the domains of livability for AARP with livable communities is communication. And we are there's still a digital divide. So when it comes to families with children, when it comes to the aging population, 50 and older, is they might not even know what's going on downtown because they don't have a laptop, they don't have the internet. So thinking about we run into this at AARP, but we don't know what we don't know. And if they are going downtown for a destination reason, they might not even know what's going on downtown. So it's like, how do you better connect families and 50 plus population with what is going downtown? So, old school, is it print? Is it, I don't know, is it the news? So that would be one. I also will say, if I could just plug also downtown, is that it's always on a bus line. Most downtowns are on a bus line. And I also think that helps kind of what Michael said is, when if people aren't driving, how are they going to get downtown? But I would say if you have events downtown and you're really trying to get people down there and activate space and activate people, is different and creative ways to communicate what's going on.
Tom, I'd love to hear, you talked about the barriers maybe on State Street and some of the other areas. What are you seeing sort of those physical, social, economic barriers particularly for young children to come in and enjoy downtown
Well,
Madison?
following up on both the other panelists, I think we really need to focus on ease and convenience. So, I think about, yes, it's a bus line, but a lot of people are intimidated by the bus line. Let's put those school buses to work at night. We've talked with community centers about bringing several vans in of multiple generations to work, on a regular basis to work with us. And if there was you know, heck, if I could jump on a bus on the west side of Madison and it takes me downtown and I go do all my stuff and then I come downtown, I don't have to look for parking, I don't have to deal with rush hour, etc. And I'm pretty able and I'm there every day. But I think we really need to think creatively about how we get people downtown and from what neighborhoods. So we do a huge amount of community outreach. We give free family passes when we're out in the community to then bring them downtown. We work with the schools and we offer schools a special school night for kids and their caretakers, and we pay for the bus and do all of that. So I think getting people downtown is really upon us. It's on the downtowns to be creative and think about that. And I think that we really need to start working better with the downtown, kind of the government leadership and the nonprofit leadership. What I see all the time is nonprofits racking their brains. How do we get people here? How do we help cover these costs? How do we do pop-ups? How do we, and working as a funder for 20 years, so many well-intentioned people, well-intentioned nonprofits who have no money, and then they compete for, maybe $1,000 city grant, to put an event on in a park or to do a chalk draw, to do something that would cost $25,000 to do well. And I think we need to make more money available to incentivize people to be doing exactly what we're talking about today. And again, ease and convenience. It can't be you jump through these 7 hoops and you visit these 3 offices and you have a 1 in 10 chance of getting something. We've got, even if it was like, okay, we're going to give $10,000 grants away a year, and you make it simple and easy. I think we set up barriers, whether it's I got to take a bus knowing where I'm going, or I got to write a grant application, which I've never done, and it's a crapshoot. and they want three other sources of funding. I don't think we have a hard problem to solve. I think a lot of it is kind of that kind of lubrication. Let's just, and you decide how little or how much could we do, Could we have 50,000, $10,000 grants for some kind of fun, great downtown? Here are natural partners who would like to work with you. Children's Museum would be one. And let's just do it. Let's experiment with that form. But it's really a lot of extra lifting by the nonprofits in a not very habitable or hospitable, I should say, atmosphere sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, you definitely have a lot of folks that are working in these spaces, and you can bridge the divide with the nonprofits, with some governmental entities, even some of the for-profit companies that can work this together. Michael, would love to hear from you in Milwaukee. How are we sort of bridging that gap with organizations like yours, right, that can help fully engage in downtown, in programming, in spaces that might be much more friendly and inclusive for both older and younger generations?
Yeah, in terms of serving older adults, we are proud participants and partners with different organizations. Just off the top of my head, Aging Services in Milwaukee County, we have a very close partnership where, we work with them to engage in ongoing and continuous conversation about how we can improve the lives of individuals in Milwaukee County, Southeast Wisconsin, and beyond, who are older adults who need um, access and community and a sense of belonging. And it really is about partnering and co-creation and working with organizations in the Milwaukee area about focusing on who are they trying to serve and inviting the participants from the community to actually be part of that conversation, which I think is vitally important.
Amber, where have you seen, that sort of coming together happen successfully in the state of Wisconsin? Are there you showed obviously some of the park spaces and the
Yeah.
Eagle Walk, which I was very glad to hear was not a real Eagle Walk. That would have been a totally different
Yeah, that would have been
thing.
totally
Yes.
different. Yeah.
But where are you seeing this successful that maybe, Madison and Milwaukee can learn from? Like the Tom's idea of like bringing folks together to lubricate it and to make sure these things are
Yeah.
happening. Where is this happening successfully in the state?
Well, I can only, I always got to plug Milwaukee, and it kind of goes back to those kind of mini charrettes and listening sessions. Is some, a lot of the local neighborhood associations here in Milwaukee are doing that type of conversation and getting people together of all ages, kind of really taking the essence of 880 cities and AARP livable communities to say, what do we want to do in our community. So getting them together and taking kind of walk audits, seeing what they're doing in their community, and then actually taking that information and doing something with it. So I think it that could be replicated even on a small scale. On a bigger scale, there's been bigger things here in Milwaukee, especially when it comes to transportation, getting different types of people together of all abilities together, saying, how do we want transportation? It'd be great if we can get more bus shelters. So it could be as big or as little as you want, but it really is getting different types of people together in a room and connecting and having a goal in mind, but it can't be the same type of person. And so when we think of livable communities, on people's steering committee, and bless their heart, it's usually, it's always, 60 and older. And I'm like, no, we still need that voice of the college student, of the mom with the children, of, other people. So to me, if you want to take an action and get people together talking, just make sure it's a diverse group so it reflects the community that you reside in.
Yeah, I want to say a big thank you to AARP. I mean, these walk audits, these activities to bring people together, you all do that very well. In fact, we're doing a walk audit type program here on Regent Street very soon. As those folks, Madison may or may not know, Regent Street's going to be fully reconstructed. And it isn't really, I've said it, it's not a street that really works for anybody right now in the heart of downtown. It doesn't work for single occupied cars. And so how do we improve that street? Speaking of those design elements, Tom, I really want this, hear your answer to this question. Whether it's parks or public seating or play areas, transportation systems, which we've gone over a little bit, what are those design elements most support intergenerational uses of downtowns? And have you seen successes in Madison? And where are some of those gaps? You sort of talked a little bit about that, but you really know sort of those specific design elements well. What do we need to be doing to design our downtown better for everybody?
I think you've got to be as creative as possible and you've got to be as comfortable as possible. One of the things that shocks me is in Madison, as beautiful as our downtown is, there's nowhere for me to sit outside and eat my lunch. Right? There's no tables, there's no picnic tables. We have green spaces, we have open spaces, we have sidewalks and plazas, but there's really nowhere for me to go. So if I'm with a kid and we're going to buy something and sit and eat, um, you know, so I think we need more pop-up spaces. I've been in cities where they have permanent chess tables and things like that that sit around, and those create not just a place to play chess, but if you've been in any of those areas, this kind of culture comes up and you watch people play chess. I think of Harvard Square in Boston. In the Chicago Loop years ago, I worked in the Loop for a summer, and they had 5 different plazas, and every single weekday in every one of those 5 spots, they had live music and performance, dance, juggling, music, etc. And thousands of people would go outside, bring their lunch, buy their lunch at a food cart, and sit next to strangers and enjoy that. And I've been trying for years to think, how do we program State Street so there could be 1 or 2, and again, you start, what's the least you could do? Hey, Thursdays at lunch, go out and do this. What's the most you could do? It could be kind of a regular, everyday thing. But I think, too many people sitting at their desks, too many people sitting at their homes, not doing that. And I think, and that leads me again to, how do you make that accessible? If you could go downtown and listen to some music and have lunch with your grandchild, and then go back home again, and it was easy, I think people would come. And I think once you make it easy, then once that first step is done, then people were like, oh, let's visit, the museum. Let's take a walk down State Street. Let's go down by the lake. I think you give people entree to that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that is a really good ending statement. That sort of entree, that ability to do with ease. Amber, Michael, you both are based in Milwaukee, right? Are we seeing, positive successes with some of those design elements that are helping, particularly older Madisonians? Wrong one. Milwaukeeites, Milwaukeeans, Milwaukee, all the folks in Milwaukee, and make sure that they can enjoy the downtown.
I off the top of my head, when I think of areas like Lakefront, Third Ward, Brewers Hill, there's a bunch of development over the last few years in all those areas that really are looking at layering those physical environments with trying to create structures, whether they're around areas that are close to play areas, park benches, garden plots, so there can be that intergenerational activity between children's families and older adults in the same spaces. So I think there's some great work in those areas. There's opportunity. There's always gaps that exist, right? But we are seeing a push and a move to actually have more inclusive environment that can work for that 8 to 80 generations.
And if I could just add, if you would have asked me 6 years ago how important a bench is, I'd be like, why do we need benches? I wish that our bus stops in city of Milwaukee, so if I'm not mistaken, only about 30% of them have a bus shelter. That was from MCTS. If we're encouraging people to ride the bus or encouraging them as an option, as one of the ways they can get downtown, standing at a bus stop for 20 minutes or whatever, I would love to see more benches at bus stops to encourage people to ride the bus, but that they can sit down at the whether you're 15 older, 16 older, or a mother with children. But there's not, and I'm not poo-pooing our Milwaukee downtown. I think it's great, but that just goes for, people, communities with public transportation anyways, is, thinking about 880 and the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old. And myself, I would like to sit down if I'm standing for 20 minutes for a bus stop. Or for a bus. So that would be maybe something I would probably add.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Tom, yeah, please.
I just echo, yeah, I think that we often, especially with downtowns, we operate out of fear rather than hope. And I think a lot of the urban planning for downtowns is fear of the homelessness. We can't put benches because they'll sleep on them. We can't put in a thing to shelter you from rain at a bus stop. You know, we can't put in a picnic table. And I just think that's completely backwards. And maybe you'll have 1,000 people sit there and have lunch and commune and be safe on their commute. And yeah, maybe you'll have somebody there at night sleeping, but you can't just throw out the entire idea of kind of the common decency of, you know, uh, if rain and snow, you should be protected. And if you're waiting 20 to 60 minutes, you should have a place to sit. We've got to be doing this. And then once you decide to do it, then you can be inventive with design. You can have artists involved. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. And then probably there's a fundraising way if you get creative with arts and design and stuff. But we've really got to start thinking about how do we help the majority of people rather than be afraid of a minority.
Well, and I think in Madison, we've got some larger potential public placemaking projects that are happening now, in particular, Mifflin Plaza, right, which is the top of State Street, where State Street comes into Mifflin and Carroll Street. It's actually the number one used pedestrian intersection in the entire state of Wisconsin. And how do we redesign that space for everyone, right? For 8 and 80-year-olds, for honestly, I've got a 2-year-old, for a 2-year-old, and for a 102-year-old. If you really extend that out. And so that space works for everyone, Tom, which is a very good point. We do have time for question and answer from our audience. I see a couple questions have already come in, but remember, put those questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll answer those in just a minute. We're going to ask one last question of our panelists. And if you could recommend one actionable idea, one actionable step for the city of Madison and or Milwaukee leaders to move closer to an 880 city model, what would that be? Amber, we're going to start with you.
I think an actionable item, low cost, I think is to get people in a room and really start talking. And I believe you, Matt, you probably have done that in downtown before. But I don't know. I think it's getting people talking, connecting, and seeing what they want to do, and that information that could be brought to our city leaders. But I think the city leaders won't probably be eager to jump at it without saying, hey, we got people together and we did this charrette. So I would say get people in a room talking to help envision and hear from what they want to see in downtown.
A lot of the positive stuff that I've seen downtown, the growth of our East Washington area, of our downtown area, the building projects, the public spaces, has really been pushed largely by the nonprofits themselves. So I'd urge that the city and some nonprofit leadership start talking together, because the nonprofits, we talk about this all the time. How do we make things accessible? A third of the people who come to our children's museum basically get in for free, and that's on purpose. We have a rooftop garden. The museum downtown has a rooftop garden. How do we use kind of rooftop spaces? So not just public spaces, but get people to say, come to our rooftop, see the view, enjoy the greenery, engage with your kids, see art, and get them into the building. And then they'll, I believe, trickle down through the rest of the building and start enjoying the downtown. So I would say we have to start with that kind of discussion. And we have a lot of discussions in Madison, and sometimes they're just so people can check off, yep, we brought in 20 people, we had these. It has got to be kind of a belief and an incentive that we're going to do this. And again, I've said this multiple times. I think there's a fear of, oh, it's overwhelming and it's too big and it's too expensive. And start where you can, have early successes. The last thing I would say is I think we need to be bolder when we're talking about public spaces. So Jason mentioned the Mifflin space. I was part of charrettes about that space. We could do a lot of things to make everybody happy, but it could just be a simple cul-de-sac with some tables. I really think we need to create spaces. I call them kind of selfie spaces. Where's that public sculpture or that mural where somebody comes to visit, you have to see this. We've got to photograph ourselves in front of this. Is that I don't know what it is, 100-foot tall Bucky, or I think creating a space where like we got to go here. It's cool. It's lit up at night. It changes colors. They have funky drinks. I don't know what that is, but it's got to be. We have to think more boldly, and I think we tend to, through consensus, we sometimes get down to mediocrity.
I would like to add my 2 cents to piggyback off of both what Amber and Tom touched base on. I would add a caveat to when you get people in the room to have conversations, it is to truly listen and ask for input of what the thoughts and ideas of both 80 and 80-year-olds are, because there is a tendency for both 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds to be told what they're thinking and what they need. So it is important to actually listen and to the autonomous voice of these individuals for what their needs are, their desires, their wants, and not assume and tell them. So that's one. Two, an actionable item is to try to create spaces that truly are accessible to all. And I'm just not talking from an ADA perspective and physical environment. I'm talking about access pay to play. A lot of environments in downtown areas are structured around access through wealth, right? And I think we need to do a better job of creating environments that are truly inclusive of the demographic of the city it represents. So.
Well, Michael, I would say here to your first point for sure. I would argue, unfortunately, in our country right now, we're doing that with almost every age. We're just not listening. And I hope that we can do that a lot more. Second thing I would take away from those points is Tom Linfield. Boy, do I hope we get 100-foot Bucky somewhere here in Madison. That would be amazing. All right, we got a couple minutes here for questions and answers. We got some great questions from our audience. First question is for Amber. Curious, Amber, how you and your team work with downtowns to encourage seniors to get out and enjoy those spaces. What offerings seem to be working, like activities, discounting, etc.?
I will say, so we definitely are open to working with downtowns. We work probably, there's only 8 of us throughout the whole state, and Darren and I are the only ones who do this work. So 2 people, we try our best to work with downtowns, definitely in our livable communities. I would actually say the one thing I think is the easiest is we do discounted offers. So I'll make up a scenario. Let's say we partner with the downtown museum to do discounted tickets or a free day. If it's discounted tickets, I don't even know how much it costs to get in anywhere. Let's say it's $20. We do discounted tickets for $5, but we pay the museum the remaining $15. So the museum's not out any money. And I could not agree with Michael more that if we would love to partner with more downtowns of, bringing activities, yoga in the park, or whatever we can do to get our 850,000 AARP members in Wisconsin. But it is anything that's free or low cost will bring people. So I do agree with Michael. It's hard to get our seniors downtown, especially if they're on a fixed income. So definitely discounted events, or something that they traditionally cannot do on their own. So something creative like yoga in the park, or yoga with goats or dogs or whatever. And then I do have to plug, we do have the Bronze Fawn. So that is our destination in downtown Milwaukee. It's the Bronze Fawn. So that brings people. It brings people.
And the Bronze Fonz is only like 5'2". So we're going to go with 100-foot here. Yes.
Sounds good.
All right. That was it. Henry Winkler's the best. I shouldn't have been anyway. Tom, last question is going to be for you, because we're seeing this a lot in downtown Madison. As downtown residential housing increases and abuts other usages, including entertainment districts, how do we see residents safely coexist with those businesses, particularly when one of the areas, maybe not your area in particular, but we're seeing a lot of seniors. The second largest growth of housing in the downtown is seniors after 20 and young 30-year-olds. How do we make sure all of those work together as we see this increased density in the downtown?
Well, it's a certain type of senior, right? I mean, the downtown seniors are all considerably wealthy seniors. And so because of that, they will have less of a barrier to getting around. I mean, they can Uber, they don't have some of the things that people who aren't downtown have in terms of accessibility. I think part of that is interesting. I don't know how much power we have over, what the businesses downtown look like. I've seen over my time, my 30 years in Madison, some of the more user-friendly and generationally friendly businesses like used bookstores, Ella's Deli, art supply stores. Those have all gone out, and now they're more, there are more bars. There's more. I took a walk with my son, and I learned that we have three bong stores on State Street now. So I don't know. Maybe that's intergenerational. I don't know. But I think, again, there's a lot of food, but where can you go and eat it? Where can you go picnic? I think, we have a park about halfway down State Street that I think, the Peace Park, that would be prime place to do more programming. I think, as if businesses come in, how do we work with them so that they have rooftops that are, we had a hotel that was knocked sideways by COVID, but they were going to build a public rooftop that would have been accessible, rentable, usable. I think the rooftops of downtown Madison have huge potential.
Yeah, Tom, you bring up a good point. I mean, I'd say organizations like us, Madison Central Business Improvement District, need to do a better job of recruiting businesses, right, that are in those areas. One of the great examples is right in your little neck of the woods, right off of Hamilton, is Lake City Books, right across from you. It's a great bookstore for kids, right? And so all of a sudden, between that and Gotham Bagels, which is certainly very kid friendly, like you have this little, knuckle right there that can work with the YWCA. That's what we need to be building more of a recruit it. I want to say a huge thank you to Tom Linfield, President and CEO of Madison Children's Museum, Amber Miller, Associate State Director for AARP Wisconsin, and Michael Van Blayercom, the President and CEO of Serving Older Adults, for the excellent panel discussion today. We really appreciate all you three are doing for downtowns across the state, but particularly Madison and Milwaukee, to make them as inclusive and as accessible as possible. We take so much inspiration from our Beyond Compliance Task Force working on accessibility issues right here in Madison from your work. So thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you for all of you for joining us. We've got our sponsors in Reinhardt and Whitley, but last word is going to be with our great friends and the new CEO of Milwaukee Downtown, our good friend, Matt Dorner. Take us home, Matt. Take us home.
Thank you, Jason. Wow, what a great discussion. I found myself going throughout the questions and all the points to our recently adopted Connecting NKE downtown area plan, sort of painting the vision for what does a downtown Milwaukee look in 2040 with all of these. And as I'm looking at the big ideas, talking about improving streets to support all users, redesigning our streets as public spaces. So many of the comments that were brought forward by our panels really kind of embodied in that plan. I think now, a year into the adoption, it's really about implementation. So looking forward to working with, all of our different users that are playing in that space. We're heavily involved in programming our public spaces and trying to make those, again, family friendly, 8 to 80. And as we look at, permanent infrastructure changes and our programming, this is certainly a lens that is more critically important than ever. So again, what an insightful discussion. Looking forward to working with everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you downtown Milwaukee and downtown Madison. Have a great day, everybody.